People are talking about it here, Jimmy, with Rob on the passing stuff. How much are they missing that offensively right now? The ability to, because you talk about ball movement stagnates, which means more dribble, which means more guys getting trapped, which means more forces, which means more turnovers, which means more guys trying to pass the ball into windows and places that they're not comfortable doing because that's not their main role. I do think that is the trickle down off of no Rob with the ball movement and the offense and the turnovers. Is real at this point because
totally.
he makes a huge difference there, and they don't have it. You've got black hole Tristan who gets it, can't really do anything with it. Everybody surrounds him. He either gets stripped of it or he kind of kicks it back out. Now you're scrambling late in the clock.
He just leans over.
Yeah,
and nobody's honoring like a shot outside of like 5 feet from Tristan as they would Rob too. So he's clogging the paint a little bit more too. It's preventing guys from maybe driving to the rim the way they typically would. So there's a lot of reasons there. Are we concerned about Rob? We mentioned this.
That's what I want to talk about next.
I'm very concerned.
I wanted to segue there. This is pretty. I mean, you guys all heard it, and we were talking about it on the text thread. Just catching the people up here. We went from when the injury started. Exact quote from Danny Ainge was, "I don't think it's a big." I mean, from Brad, we're looking at this like a day-to-day thing. When it was described as soreness, he's still on the injury report with knee soreness. Today, Brad's comments are, "We think he's getting better, and we hope to see him sometime soon." That's not at all definitive at all. And I don't know what's going on here, but at this point, this has never been a team that's been very transparent with injuries. But this at this point just feels like absolute just cover up. I mean,
so I do think
tell us what it is, right?
I do think something happened in between those two comments because they had that practice last week in the middle of the week, and he went full go in that. He was a full participant and had to be taken out, it sounded like. And there must have been some sort of regression there in whatever happened because he didn't play the next night. The plan was to have him practice that night and then play the next night. I think it was Thursday against the Suns. Yeah, that was supposed to be his return date after the Wednesday practice. So something happened in that practice that obviously set him back. And, again, I talked about this injury being directly related to the blood flow issue that he had in the draft there, at least in terms of like how it's described. That was the blood flow behind the knee is what he's dealing with now, the inflammation behind the knee. So that obviously raises red flags for me. This is the exact thing that turned off many of the teams in the draft. And so, we look at the history here and how some of these things seem to escalate from how they're initially described. I'm hugely concerned.
Well, I'm concerned because, one, the impact that he makes on his team. Two, the fact that, as Bobby, you pointed out, it's not like this is something that's coming out of left field. This is something that has been on the radar with him from a health standpoint for a while. But if this team is going to have any shot at being, as John loves to say, the best version of themselves, they need Time Lord to be out there on the court.
Yeah, they're 2-3 since he went down.
Because of all the little things that he does, and that's part of their problem. They don't have enough people who are excellent role players in the little things, like setting screens, making a bounce pass to a teammate who's wide open, making the hockey assist when you know that if you get it to Tatum with his defender out of position, he can either attack and go to the rim, or he can just raise up for an open shot. Little things that don't always show up in the stat sheet, but when you're watching them play, you realize, wow, Time Lord is like kind of a big deal to this team. And when you look at what they're doing in his place, it's not even close. They're getting nothing even remotely close to someone who can impact at that position. And it is literally throwing off the games of everyone else on the floor.
Absolutely, Sherrod. You said it best. You said it perfectly, man. And I just want to add, like, it took a while for Time Lord to get here, whether it was setting those hard screens without fouling, whether it was not jumping for every single up fake, whether it was having the hands to catch the ball in traffic for the easy putback. Like, all this is so important for the Celtics team on both ends of the floor, because on offense now, that part of his game is what's elevated this offensive, to get open looks for guys, that from behind the arc. All easy looks that now are not available because he's not there, And then defensively, we already know what he does there. Constantly applying pressure, whether it's on the pick and roll, whether he's on the switch. It's taken him, I don't know, the better of the past 2.5 years or so, or 2.5 seasons for him to get there, and this setback. I just think honestly the Celtics are being precautious. Now, if we don't see him this week, then I'm big worried. Okay, then I'm very scared. I'm like, where are we with Robert Williams?
But this goes back to that thing.
Shutting him down for the postseason. I hope that's not the case, but again, we'll have to wait and see. I'm believing Brad on this one, but we'll see. We'll wait for a couple of days and see if he's out there on Tuesday.
Does the whole roster need to be healthy for them to even be able to compete, though? I mean, come on. I guess this game especially. I know Rob would have helped here, but Rob's absence wasn't the issue.
Bobby, it shouldn't, but oftentimes it does. That's the problem. It shouldn't. A game like this, they should win going away without Rob Williams, but they didn't because they played like ass. And Brad has a post-game comment a short while ago. He says, I don't think we've won a single game this year when we've played subpar. And so they don't have enough. Jimmy said this at the very beginning of the year, and we talked about this. Do they have the horses to just walk into a gym and win without their A stuff? And the answer is no. They are not good enough.
They did it during that 8-3 stretch, and they haven't since.
Yes, they're not good enough to coast to victory, which means they need max effort, and it's a hard thing to do. The shortened schedule, people missing time. It's not ideal circumstances to go in there and bust your ass every single game, but every game they've gone out and played shitty or subpar, even for very few of those have they been. I think there's maybe, which game was it? They played one
Some
game
of the
where
magic ones.
One game where they played only in the fourth quarter recently and they won. It might have been a Memphis game. I forget what it was. They've had a couple, but really not many. For the most part, if they go out there and they play subpar, they lose.
So that was your Mad Brad quote. I like this one. We got outplayed, outcoached, and out hustled.
Yep, that wasn't my Mad Brad. That was just that was my reality check. They don't have
that quote. Yeah. You could take that Brad quote and apply it to so many games this year. I mean, nothing's changed. Like, this is the same team, right? I mean, we talked about it against the loss to the Nets. I was like, I'm not even upset about this because it's honestly what I expected. You know what I mean? Like, this is the same team. They haven't really changed. Yeah, they won a little bit of a win streak. That was nice. You know, every team does at some point. But fool's gold for the most part. You know, they are who they are at this point, I think, in the season. And the Rob stuff, real quick, because I didn't comment on it. The thing that concerns me about Rob is that, like, yeah, his minutes ticked up, but we're not talking about a player that was going 30 minutes a game. He never was. Right. So it's fake. Everyone wants to say, oh, you know, Brad was right. You know, they shouldn't have put his minutes that high. He's still playing low to mid 20s at most. So if you can't get that out of a player, then I mean, I don't know what you can't expect anything out of him. I don't know. I know Bobby's, I think, somewhat connecting the dots and saying that, you know, the issue with him going into the draft is the same issue that we're seeing now. I mean, I don't think anyone's come out and said that. It's more speculation. But if that's the case, then they shouldn't even consider re-signing this guy, because then what you're saying is he can't give you more than 20 minutes a game, or else he's going to have to have knee soreness and miss significant time. So really,
re-signing him comes down to the dollars and cents, Jimmy. I mean, if you're looking to re-sign him and pay him $25 million a year, that's not a good investment.
Right.
But if he's looking to make significantly less than that, you know, then it's worth it if you can get a quality 20 minutes out of him. So the price point, I think, is going to be interesting that they come to, because this is not good negotiating leverage for Robert Williams when it comes to getting a new deal done.
Well, they're not going to extend them. You know, they're not going to, you know, guarantee him years into the future with that concern and others that they have. They'll take him to market. They obviously know that other teams haven't been as interested in him as they would have liked, or he would probably like eventually when he gets to free agency. So that's when they'll probably get the deal there, when he goes into restricted free agency. And no one's willing to give him a massive offer sheet, and they'll probably get a good deal on him then.
Perhaps. Well, what I wonder, John, I think you may have mentioned it, is something that can be fixed easily with off-season surgery. Not, you know, we're not talking about major ACL tear reconstruction here. You're talking about something that, you know, they can go in there and I'm not a doctor. I have no idea what they would do, but alleviate the situation that's causing the pain.
There's supposed to be something you could do.
Jimmy's always talking about being a doctor.
No, but like
in this case, I'm not much of a knee doctor.
I remember reading about it back then, and I remember it being written off as something that like causes cramping from time to time, but usually in most people goes away like minutes later. In severe cases, they're supposed to have situations where you could theoretically, it could damage nerves and arteries and cause different problems there if it was severe. But like Rob hasn't had it flare up really in 2 years. And he said when he had it in the draft, he hadn't even had an episode of it since mid high school. So like, it's a thing that like,
same thing.
Oh, one day you're like, oh man, I feel a little whatever there, and then usually goes away. Like that's kind of, I think, what it's been. So for something here going on, that makes me worry that like we've gone into the bad area of where this injury could go. If that is what it is, and you're talking 6, 7, and 8 games, unless it's something different, but it sounds exactly like what's described.
Well, you almost never hear
back
about
of
this.
the knee, above the calf, a circulation issue that causes cramping and soreness in your calf area. That's why they're calling it below the knee. It's just what they talked about out of college. So that would suck. But it really isn't a thing that has. It's different than the hip, you know, which is what's kept him out. So I don't know. I mean, I really don't know there.
I think that's what scares me, because it's not, you know, it's something different. It's not the hip and the history behind it, you know?
Yeah.